I'm a huge fan. I grew up in LA, and
Oh my goodness.
in fact, I was working in the newsroom at ABC with George Fishbeck and those guys. And
Oh my God.
uh,
Well, I'll tell you what's funny. He passed away a while ago
yeah.
and retired an even longer while ago. And people still ask me about Dr. George. Just this iconic figure in LA, and people's memory is still very stark about him. A lovely man.
Yeah, always with his hand over his heart, and
Yep.
and just an incredibly
What'd
nice
you do in the
guy.
newsroom?
What he was on television was what he was in real life.
No, I know. That was the beauty of him. He was just, he would talk and ramble and eventually get to the weather, but nobody cared.
Fritz, you come from Philadelphia.
Correct.
What made you want to get into television?
I always had a secret desire to be on television, but never had the guts to pursue it because I didn't think I had any particular talent. And then I went in the Navy, and the Navy was looking for volunteers to work for Armed Forces Radio and Television. And so I signed up for that. You didn't have to have any experience. They were going to send me to electronics school for 2 months to learn the basics. And I got assigned to an aircraft carrier in Norfolk, Virginia. And for 3.5 years, I did radio shows and television newscasts and faked my way through weather forecasts. And it introduced me to my career. Honestly, it's an astonishing stroke of good luck that gave me my career. And the day after I got out of the Navy, I had a job in radio. I mean, I was never out of work. It was amazing.
Yeah. Is your first love radio?
My first love is performing, to be honest with you, in any venue. I'll show off on the radio, I'll show off on TV, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Just give me a microphone. So I love it all. I had 15 years in the radio business as a DJ and a production director and a music director and so forth. And then I came out to LA to do stand-up in 1980.
Yep.
And this is a very odd story, but it's absolutely true. I was on stage at the Comedy Store on Sunset Boulevard, and the news director from Channel 4 and his wife were in the audience that night. And I had talked on stage about doing the weather in the Navy, but not knowing anything about it. But the Navy didn't seem to care as long as I, filled the 2.5 minutes and had shined shoes. They didn't care what I did. And after the show, this man came and introduced himself to me, and he said, "This is a very odd question, but do you have any desire to come to Channel 4 and do some vacation relief and weekend weather work for me? I need a guy to fill in. My main guy hasn't had a vacation in a year." And I was making $45 a night at the Comedy Store. I said, "Oh my God, when do you want me to start?" He said, "Well, you have to audition." And I said, "Well, you do know that I don't know anything about weather." He said, "This is perfect. There's no weather in LA. This will work out great." So I auditioned. I got the part-time job. 2 years later, my predecessor, the full-time weathercaster, left, and I was bumped up to the main job. And I retired 2 weeks shy of my 40th anniversary 2 years ago. And the older I get, the more I understand how lucky I've been. Really an amazing amount of good luck in my life.
Yeah, you've really, and I don't think it's just luck. I think there was a talent, to make people feel good, and people look forward to your weathercasts, and being a personality in LA is hard enough, but doing everything that you were doing at that time must have been just.
Well, it's weird because, as you know, where did you grow? Did you grow up in LA, or?
I grew up in a small town called West Covina.
Oh my goodness, the San Gabriel Valley. I'm very
where the
familiar.
sewer meets the sea. Yes.
That's good. Yeah. So you know that from April to October, the forecast is morning clouds and fog, hazy afternoon sun. What was the question? So my whole job, I had 2 jobs as a weather forecaster. First of all, I was hired from the Comedy Store. So they wanted me just to be the palate cleanser between the tragedy and the sports. That was my job. Just be a little sigh of relief between the bad news and the sports. Second of all, my job was to come up with new ways to say the same forecast every day for 5 or 6 months in a row, unless there was El Nino or a brush fire or something, and then stuff got serious. But really, it was, when I got in, it was a personality job. Now, if you're not a licensed meteorologist or have a degree in, meteorology or atmospheric sciences, you won't get the job. I could not get the job now if I had to.
Yeah, and that's, again, that's how television has changed
Yes,
completely.
very much so. Very much so.
And in those days, the 80s, I mean, it was kind of really like the Wild West,
It really was. It really
on
was.
television. I work with Jerry Dunphy, of course,
Oh
and
man, one of the main, the iconic anchors in L.A.
he was a great guy, but he was a moody person,
Yes,
and
loved to
uh,
have his cocktails between the early and late news.
yeah, we'd always go to the Four Seasons just before and the smokehouse. I miss the smokehouse.
That's right. I still go there. It's like a mile from my house.
Wow, so you're still living in Burbank?
I live in Toluca Lake, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But in those 40 years that you put in, I mean, how has television changed for you as you're sitting back and watching?
Oh, you pointed, and you were there. You were there, I think, at the cusp of the change. When I got in, there were 3 stations, 2, 7, and 4.
Mm-hmm.
Then it expanded, all these independent stations, 5, 9, 11, and 13 all started. Then the duopolies started, which was 2 and 9 became a duopoly, and 11 and 13 became a duopoly. So there went from 3 stations to 3 times the competition. And then what happened is that the amount of news during the day expanded. They started doing more hours of news. Some of these independent stations like 5, 9, and 11 started doing news during the day. So the competition increased exponentially.
Wow.
Also, you had a short American attention span. It was a buyer's market. And so they didn't give you much time to communicate because they were worried about people clicking out and going to another, channel surfing, or during a commercial channel surfing. So I would start, for instance, when I started, I had 5 minutes to do the weather on the 5 and 6 o'clock news. And when I ended my career, I had 2 or 2.5 minutes max, because they were so worried about people clicking out. So the amount of time you got has shortened. The amount of competition has increased exponentially. And then, just as I was retiring, you had streaming, which has really thrown a monkey wrench into network television. It's changed the whole dynamic of TV. There's very little appointment television anymore, where people would sit down on Thursday night at 8 o'clock and watch Cosby or Seinfeld, and it was appointment TV and it was a family function. Now, again, it's a buyer's market. There is an appointment TV. You just stream it and watch it whenever you want. The only thing that still is appointment TV is sports, live sports events, but it's changed so much. And I really feel like I stepped off the ship at precisely the right moment.
This portion of Screen Chatter is presented by VP Dental. Check out our great dental plans starting at just $16 per month. Talk to me a little bit about your life as a stand-up comic, because that must have been a great training ground for what you do.
Well, it was great because, working to drunks and nightclubs at 1 o'clock in the morning made you afraid of nothing. So when we had a technical issue during the newscast, there was nothing that could throw me off. As a matter of fact, I looked forward to it when stuff would go south, because then you could have a little fun. But I got my job doing the weather. I was a stand-up ahead of that. I started in New York State, Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo, working in jazz clubs as a comic. And I came out here in 1980 because I was bitten by the bug and wanted to pursue it. I did all the open mics, started from the ground up. I did 8 performances on The Tonight Show. I did the Bob Hope Christmas comedy special. I opened for Ray Charles in concert, Debbie Reynolds, America, George Benson. I mean, I've had a wonderful career in stand-up. I've done 3 one-person shows. One was about being a parent, and public television in LA, KCET, bought that show and aired it on Father's Day 7 years in a row. So I've had a wonderful thing. And now that COVID is settling down and I'm retired, I'm back doing shows on the road and having a great time. So it's fun.
It keeps you young.
Yeah, it really does. Keeps you religious. When it goes well, it's a gift. When it doesn't, it's the loneliest half hour you'll ever have in your life.
Yeah, see, when COVID hit, I mean, we've been down. We used, as a celebrity interviewer, I do junkets and things like that, and I miss it. I miss being on the road.
Where are you located?
I'm now in Salt Lake City.
Oh,
I have an LA fan question.
Please.
Whatever became of Ralph's Story?
That's a great question. I don't know if he's alive now, but I will tell you that remember the thing called the Our Story by Ralph Story that aired on public television, this was really a beautiful format. He would go and find some iconic LA restaurant or location and say, what happened to them? Where are they now? And do this little story about the beginning of this thing and then where it is now and go back to the location. And it was very popular. Even after he was off the air, they used to run these tapes. But to answer your question, I don't know where he is, but he's another iconic figure. I think he was part of Big News or one of those. Yeah,
because he changed how we look at ourselves, and he also changed how we do news. I mean, he was doing these Ralph Story's Los Angeles.
That's what I meant. I couldn't remember the title.
It was one of those, shows where you go, wow, my God, Sepulveda Boulevard is the longest street.
Yeah. He taught LA residents about their community. That was the beauty of that show. And even after he retired, I think those tapes continue to run on public television.
Yeah, I just wondered what happened because he was just
I don't know. That's a great question.
What do you miss about television and being on the air?
I miss the camaraderie. When I was hired, the afternoon newscasts, 5 and 6 o'clock, were very familial. That is, they were like the morning newscasts where your job was to connect and seem like a family. And I love that aspect of it. We joke around a little bit and, oh yeah, here's the news. It's because, again, of the short American attention span and the severity of the news now and climate change, where people are taking weather a lot more seriously now. It's a whole different ballgame. What I miss is being on the air when there was something of consequence going on. For instance, if there was a big brush fire or if there was El Nino flooding or something like that, and you felt like you were giving people information that, without exaggeration, could save their lives. They're at work and they're seeing this fire evolve and they got to go home and get their horses out of the barn and all that stuff. I mean, and that happens infrequently, but on those times when you felt like the news served a real public service function, it was fun to be on a newscast. Then you were working on adrenaline for a couple of days in a row.
Yeah, I remember watching you during the fires in, I think, was it 88, 89?
Could be. Now they're more frequent.
And you had all the time in the world on the air. I mean,
yeah. And that was fun. It was fun just kind of improvising your way through a breaking news story. So I miss that. Back in the day when I first started, NBC had a perpetual contract for the Olympics. And they used to spend ungodly amounts of money sending the entire news team to the Olympics. So I got to go to the Seoul Olympics in 88. I got to go to the Atlanta Olympics in 92. So we would go down there for 3 weeks and do our whole newscast from the Olympic venue. And it was an astonishing experience. Really, really cool. They don't spend that kind of money anymore because they don't have the viewership that they used to have. But that was awesome.
Are you considering publishing a memoir or did you?
I do as much of exposing myself during my stand-up act that I want to do. I mean, I suppose I could, notes from, the weather desk or something like that. But although I do enjoy the writing process, particularly writing my own comedy, I haven't really thought about it. I think if somebody approached me, I might do it.
What was it like working in the same building with Johnny Carson?
It was fantastic, because what would happen is, were you ever over at the Channel 4 facility when it was?
Oh yeah, well, Phil. Do you know Phil Estes? Do you remember that name, Phil?
Yes, of course.
Phil and I were friends, and he would always invite me over backstage to the Carson show. And
so that was the fun. When Johnny was on, before the world got threatened by terrorists and bombers and people blowing stuff up, it was very easy for us before the Tonight Show, and they would tape from like 5:25 to 6:25. Is to go hang out backstage and watch the stars get ready to go on and have their moment with Johnny. And, Clint Eastwood would be back there having a beer. Don Rickles I knew from the comedy world. So whenever he was on, I would go back there and he would sharpen his knife on me before he'd go on with Johnny. Where's your weather map? Where's your 5-day forecast, Mr. Weatherman? And he would, he would have me in tears, and then I'd go back and do my weather. So that was what you're talking about, was the real fun time. When Jay took over and security became an issue, then you couldn't just wander around back there and have free reign of the backstage where it got a little tighter.
Yeah. Don Rickles, he would never survive today. They wouldn't let him do what he would do.
No, it's too politically correct in the world today.
Yeah.
Although the whole point of his show is he makes fun of everybody, and that's how he concludes his set by, bringing it back around. But he was funny and fast and amazing.
Also, children's programming in those days was just incredible. I mean, you had great, like Cassandra Peterson on Channel 9, KXJ and all. I mean, this was a great proving ground for series and shows.
That's right. And about children's programming, that was back when the FCC had a mandate where each network affiliate had to have a certain amount of children's programming Saturday and Sunday morning. And so they were forced to be creative and pretty interesting.
Yeah, the only holdout I think now is Svengoolie out of Chicago. I mean, he's the only one doing a show like
wow. So he's still doing it,
and all those great comedians.
Yeah, the movie hosts.
Yeah, movie hosts.
Yeah,
and Dialing for Dollars. All of that.
Yes. That was great. Local TV used to be bigger than it is now, and I benefit from the fact that general managers, who are the lead person at the TV station, were kings of their own fiefdom. Yeah. They ran the station like they wanted to. Now it's so corporate that all the owned and operated stations in a chain look the same. They all have, and that's a branding thing, because they want you, wherever market you go to feel familiar with the NBC logo and all that stuff. It didn't used to be that way. And that's how I got shows like It's Fritz, and how they let me continue to do stand-up, because they just love the promotional possibilities of that. But it's a different time now.
Did you ever get roped into doing the Rose Parade?
No, I never did that. I went to the Rose Parade, but I never did that.
You never rode the NBC float or anything, huh?
No, I'll tell you what, though. I did. My children and I rode on the Anheuser-Busch float one year, which was drawn by the Clydesdales. Now, I never realized what stardom is until we're for 5 hours on the back of this covered wagon. We were dressed as a pioneer family. And this is really funny. In the prep for being in the parade, the handler said, my kids were at the time like 7 and 5. He said, you have to bring Tupperware, because there's no getting off this covered wagon to go to the bathroom. So if the kids have to pee, they go in the back of the covered wagon and pee in the Tupperware, because they can't get off the thing. So for 5 hours, but we're behind the Clydesdales, and the public reaction to these horses was unbelievable. They went nuts. It was really a lot of fun.
They're magnificent, those horses. I mean, they're huge.
Yeah.
Well, I just adore talking with you, Fritz. I mean, this is my favorite
great
time.
Conversation. It's fun because you were in the business, and we have a little simpatico there.
Yeah, I mean, again, and what you said was the camaraderie, because, Tom Snyder and Jerry Dunphy were friends. We'd all go to the smokehouse together, as I said. Right. And I used to know really well Mark Blinoff, who used to run KMPC. And that
was a great radio. When I first came to town, Gary Owens was Afternoon Drive. Robert W. Morgan was the morning DJ. I don't know who was the midday guy, but these
Jack Angel.
Jeez. And
Dick Whittingham.
They were the big voices in West Coast radio at the time. And I remember driving down the 10, first getting to LA, and I think it was in the afternoon, and Gary was on the air. I said, I have arrived.
Honestly, I was going to wrap this up by saying it is such a pleasure, because you bring back so many of those great memories of those people, and you as well, because again, you brought so much of you to the screen that the audience has just loved you.
I appreciate hearing that.
As a single mom, I want to make sure my kids have healthy teeth. Going to the dentist can be expensive. Just a simple cleaning can cost over $100. Then I found TDA, and for about $1 a day, Total Dental Administrators covers my family on over 200 dental procedures. Whether you're an individual, a family, self-employed, or retired, your acceptance is guaranteed for one of these policies. Call or click for your free information kit and see how affordable dental health can be.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with Dachshund breeding.
No.
Let me try. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out words.
Playing world music.
What?
I give up.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
Anyway, great to talk to you, my friend. Stay well. Keep up the good work.
Fritz, it's a pleasure, and you take care.
All right. See you later.
Enjoy your eye appointment.
I will. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Millions of people are losing their dental coverage every year or can't afford dental care due to the high cost. Just a simple cleaning can cost over $100. But there is an answer, TDA. For about $1 a day, Total Dental Administrators covers over 200 dental procedures. Whether you're an individual, a family, self-employed, or retired, TDA has a plan that's right for you, starting about $1 a day. So call or click for your free information kit and see how affordable dental health can be.